Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for those of you, if you were waiting at 10 o'clock. I hope you saw that I could not do my live at 10 o'clock. So thank you for being flexible. That came up at the last minute. But I want to show you some fun gift packaging. I don't know if you're like me, but you have, the person that cuts my hair and all different people that you'd like to give something little to at the holiday time. So I like to stock up on hand sanitizers and little lip balms and fun things like that. And I found this cute hinged box. I'll show you how to make it from the Paper Pixie. Oh gosh, could have been like 5 years ago. And, like Pinterest, we're all on Pinterest. And I used a walk in the forest paper. This gold and silver combo pack trim is online. If you look at my online store, that is online. And that is still available. And then the duet punch and that Merry Christmas comes from the country. Oh, here I am saying it. It comes from the Cottage Wreaths stamp set. So if you take the little paper off and you open it up, and I always open it the wrong way, it fits a little hand sanitizer, and it's a hinged box. I really love that. If you have not watched the Paper Pixie, she's good. And that just fits right back on there. So let's make one. What are you going to need? I used a piece of white, basic white. I stamped Merry Christmas in cherry cobbler, and that Merry Christmas comes from the Cottage Wreaths. And I used that oval duet, and this is cherry cobbler. I will also get some of the gold trim when it gets time. I have a piece of cherry cobbler that is 3 3/4 by 4 3/4. And I'll show you how we're going to score it in a minute. If you have any questions, I can't always see them when I'm live, but I will answer later. Now this piece is the Designer Series paper, and it's 3 3/4 by 4 13/16. You're like, what? Here's what I did. I got my paper trimmer, and instead of doing it at 4 3/4, I did it 1 more 16th right there. Just that little part there. Do you see what I'm saying? Here's a 3 3/4 go over 1 more 1/8, which is 13/16. If you want to count all those marks, go for it. But I just did it that way. So she made it a little bigger for the lid so that it can open and shut nicely. So let me show you what we're going to do with each one of these. We're going to start with the box base. Now, if you have a Stampin' Up! Trimmer, you notice you have 1 inch on either side. I'm going to line it up on the right-hand side. And you notice, if you kind of line it in the middle, you can see that line go all the way down, and you can have accurate. You're going to use the light scoring blade, and I'm going to do 1 inch on all sides. And I am doing it again. 1 inch. I like it's not tricky. You can use a Simply Scored. I just use my paper trimmer because it's just 1 inch. While I already have this out, I'm going to do the same thing. Line this up at 1 inch and do it on all the sides. So you park the dark and you use the gray scoring blade. Because if you don't, then you cut it and then you're like, ugh. I love when I do stuff like that, which happens. But as my husband says, it's just paper, so it's really okay. Okay, so we've got all the cutting and, we've got all the scoring done. Now, if you don't have a bone folder, you might want to get one, because they are really helpful to give you some really crisp edges. So there we go. Got that one all done. Be a little more careful with your Designer Series paper. You don't have to score it quite as hard, because if you do, you can rip it. So I'm a little more gentle with that. But it's still important to do all the scoring. Okay. Now, for the bottom box part, this is actually pretty easy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut up to this line. Hopefully you can see that. I'm just cutting up to that score line on all four. I'm on the short side. This is the long side. I'm on the short side. So I'm cutting up. And now I'm going to come through. I'm going to leave these two flaps the way they are. Don't muss with them. You're basically going to notch the other ones. I always think I have to notch those two middle ones, and you really don't want to. You want to only notch, and you don't have to do a huge notch. And sometimes they get too big of a notch, so a smaller notch is better. Okay. Especially on one side, I'll show you. If you didn't notice, you wouldn't. But, you know, when you're making it, you go, oh, I notched that too much. So I'm trying to make smaller notches, although you notice this one is kind of small. But this one will be a little smaller. Okay, so we'll get rid of all that junk later. Okay, so now I have my box ready to go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start, I'm using Tombow multi-glue or a liquid glue, because then I have more wiggle room. And I'm going to put the bottom of my box together, making sure I have the edges all lined up, and hold it for a minute. I'm going to do the other tab and put that in and line it up. Okay, so now that part of the box is done. I'm going to set that to the side, and I'm going to come in and work on this piece. I'm on the short end, one of the short ends. I'm going to do the same thing, cut up to the score line. That's what I like about this box. It's doable. I can see myself making a bunch of them. Once again, I'm not monkeying with that. I can make a bunch of these very quickly, and that's what I like about this sort of thing. It's a beautiful packaging, but it's not, you know, with the 1-inch scoring, it's not super hard. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to come on the other side, and I'm going to take these two squares completely out. That goes out. This square comes completely out. If I cut it completely out, that would be helpful. Okay, so you've got this. Now I'm going to bring my Stampin' trimmer. You can see I got junk all over. And I'm going to line up this. What I'm trying to do is line up this bottom edge, if you can see where I'm pointing. So I'm going to do a diagonal. So I'm going to put both of those edges in the track. And what I'm going to do just for a minute is lift this up so we don't get confused on that. So I'm going to make a diagonal from that end to that end. And I'm going to use the dark blade. So, oops, be helpful if I put it back in the trimmer. You're going to use the dark blade and actually trim. Okay, so I've got that off. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to keep that up. And I'm going to go from this end up to that end. I'm going to go back up to the top again and trim that right off. So I'm going to move this out of the way. And it looks kind of like a spaceship. Now, if I see like I might have gotten a little extra trim there, I might just kind of line that up a little bit. But this is what it's supposed to look like. Now, here's the next part that she did, and I thought, well, that is brilliance. I want this to be the inside of the box and this to be the outside. So I'm actually going to attach them together. And this is the part I almost forgot. You have to notch this just a little, not a ton, but notch it just a little so that it will fit in there a little bit nicer. Okay, so now I'm going to put some adhesive right here. Looks like I'm putting it on the correct side, and I am, but it'll make sense in a minute. Now I'm going to come in, and I'm going to make sure that's above the score line. And try to hold it and turn it. Make sure it lines up on this side too, because last time I did it great on one side and the other side looked terrible. So don't do that. Okay. Now I'm going to got this weird looking thing going here. Put this flap down. See, I still I could have had that a little less flapped in there. Can you see that? I'm okay with it, but I could have had a little less. And I see some comments, and somehow I have a hard time doing it when I'm live, so I will check them out. But I'll tell you, if you have not watched that Paper Pixie, I love how she constructs her boxes. It just makes sense to me, and her videos aren't super long, and they're just to the point, and she gives you great directions. So if you like to watch those sort of things, I would highly recommend her. Now, it's starting to look like a box. I'm going to come through, because she gave you that extra 16th. You have a little wiggle room on the top of your box. If you make it the exact size as the bottom, it would pull, I think, on the paper and just not line up very well. But if you do it this way, I'm just finishing these little edges. And look at, isn't that fun? Oh, and why didn't I have it? I just happen to have another little Vanilla Icicles pocket back. The last thing I'm going to do is bring in my Merry Christmas. Now, I could do it this way. It laps around the box a little. So, I'm going to wrap this first. And I just I could give you an exact measurement. Let's see. I always cut a little extra. I don't like if I don't have enough to tie a ribbon. I did about 14 and a half maybe. Remember, it opens the long end. So you can tie this ribbon around. You could tie a bow. I just tied a knot. You can do anything you want. Well, maybe I'll tie the knot this way this time. See if I like it. Now, I could put this on here. I did it like this because I just thought it was I don't know. And I'll probably do it that way. That is a personal preference. But it looks hard, but it's so easy. I'm intending to make a lot of these for, the people that you want to give a little something to and say, I really appreciate you. It's just a little hand sanitizer, and it is easy to make, and I love the hinged box. So leave your comments. Let me know what you think. And if you make one, please share what it looks like. Thank you all for watching. Have a great day.